morning. Good morning, everyone online. I'm Shane, one of the pastors here, and that's what you're doing. You are joining us on our journey through the Sermon on the Mount, the greatest sermon ever preached because of the one who preached it. Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. We have Jesus of Nazareth, God on the earth in the flesh, preaching a sermon. So the only sermon he preached in his 3-year public ministry. And so obviously, if we say we're followers of Jesus, this is incredibly important information for us, yes? And his goal with this sermon is very, very clear. He's got his disciples, his 12 main guys. They're on a mountain. It's called Sermon on the Mount because he's on a mountain. And he's sitting there on a mountain, and all his disciples are there, and then this whole other crowd of people who are considering becoming his disciples. And really what Jesus is saying is, if you want to follow me, this is what it looks like. This is the lifestyle of my disciples. And that is what the Sermon on the Mount is meant to be, a lifestyle. Again, I've said every time, that's not just my opinion or some conclusion I've drawn. He told us this very clearly at the end of the sermon. Matthew 7, 24 through 27, he made it clear. Any of you who hear these words of mine and put them into practice, you make them a lifestyle. That's the wise person. You're building your life on a solid foundation. When the winds come and the storms blow, and they will, and they are, and as the end gets nearer, the winds and the storms of this culture will blow even harder upon us as a church and our individual Christian lives. He says that life is a wise life. That life will stand through the storms. But if you hear these words of mine and you don't turn them into a lifestyle, you just study them, and you know what they mean in the Greek, and you have a Bible study about it, you just want to debate about it, that's foolish. And that's a life that's not built on something solid. It's a life built on sand. It's not going to stand when the storms of life blow against it, and as the end gets nearer, and this culture blows harder and harder against Christians and against the church, that life's not going to stand. And so it's clear. He wants us to make this sermon a lifestyle. And the lifestyle that he's inviting us into as his disciples has 3 main components. First component, these 8 characteristics or attitudes that we're supposed to develop called the Beatitudes. And we spent 4 weeks on those. Then, starting Matthew 5:21 through Matthew 5:47, he shifts gears. He talks about these 6 areas of sin and temptation that he wants us to avoid. And then after that, starting in chapter 6, we'll get there in a couple weeks, he starts talking about spiritual disciplines. 5 very practical spiritual disciplines that we should make a part of our lives. And if we do, they will help us develop these 8 Beatitudes and give us the strength to say no to these 6 areas of sin and temptation. But that's where we are now. If you've been trekking with us, we're in that list of 6 sins he's telling us to avoid. We've done 3 of them so far. Posed the question every time, why just these 6 when he could have listed 600 areas of sin for us as disciples to avoid? And obviously I don't know the totality of that answer. I'm sure he's got many brilliant reasons for why these 6. Probably lots we'll find out when we get there. But for sure, one of the reasons that he lists these 6 is because they're so incredibly common. And they're so easy for all of us, no matter how sincere we are in our love for Jesus, to fall into. And they're all very, very destructive to our relationships with each other and our relationship with God. And we've seen that. If you've been here, we've seen that with all 3, right? Like the first one was anger. Don't sin in your anger. The first sin to avoid. Don't sin in your anger. And we saw how destructive that can be. And we talked about not sinning in our thoughts, uncontrolled sexual thoughts, uncontrolled sexual desires. And the pain that can cause us individually, the pain it can cause the people around us, and just the raw evil it can bring into the world and has brought into the world. And last week we talked about divorce, and it's pretty obvious to all of us, the pain and the trauma that can bring to those who go through it and to the kids associated with it. And Jesus is basically just trying to say, hey, I'm trying to save you lots of pain. So part of the reason he highlights these 6 is he's trying to help us avoid lots and lots of pain, because I know I say it all the time, but I mean it because Jesus is ridiculously cool, and he really, really loves us. And so today we're going to see the same. With the 4th and 5th areas of sin that he asks us to avoid. And I'll just confess, I may have aimed higher than I should have, trying to take 2 of them, but we're in now. This is the 3rd service, so we're going. So I'm going to have to move fast to get through these. So buckle up. We're just going to have to roll, and I'm going to have to stay focused. So please don't let me get distracted at some point. The 4th and 5th areas of sin, we're going to talk about lying and seeking revenge. Jesus doesn't want us to lie as believers, and Jesus doesn't want us to seek revenge. And like I said, all 6 of these are just incredibly common. Like those 2 areas of sin, lying and seeking revenge, are just incredibly common in today's world, yeah? Like, I mean, that's kind of Americana, like both of these. But I mean, like when you think about lying and dishonesty and deception, exaggeration, spinning the truth, half-truths, like that's just, it's so common, even from like some of our main like institutions. I don't know what it's like for you, but I got to sometimes just fight being cynical. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like, as it pertains to politics or the news, media, like, can I believe anything is anyone telling me the whole truth about anything anymore? Like, everybody's spinning it and trying to get their agenda, manipulate you to get you to agree with them. And you just get to that point of kind of cynical because what it does when you feel like you're being deceived and someone's not telling you the whole truth is it just erodes trust, right? You just lose trust in those institutions. And that is one of the main reasons, no doubt, that Jesus is telling us as believers to be honest. Because it destroys trust if you lie. And it wrecks relationships. Because every healthy, beautiful relationship has to be built on trust, right? I mean, like if you have no trust in a relationship, it's going to be very difficult to have a beautiful, healthy relationship. Lying destroys that. Lying destroys relationships. And I guess parents, we really need to be aware of this, right? Like, because you want to mess your kids up, and you want to mess up your relationship with your kids, and you want to potentially mess your kids' relationship up with God, being dishonest and breaking promises to them, that's a really good way to do it, and I know this from experience. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home, but I mean, that was just one of the many issues. I mean, by the time I was 12, I don't think I believed anything that came out of my mom or dad's mouth. Like, they said we were going to do it. I was like, we are not. They said they're going to get, like, even if it was a new pair of shoes, like, that'll never happen. I didn't believe anything they said. It wrecked my relationship with them. But what I found as a believer, though I came to faith in my early 20s, is that was a huge obstacle for me. Because as parents, whether we know it or not, we are painting the first picture of God that our kids will ever see, right? So for me, and it's still a challenge, it's still an area of weakness and tenderness inside of me that I got to battle. It was incredible. In the early days, it was really hard to just trust God. Like to believe his promises were true, to believe that he'd really take care of me, to believe that I could trust him. I have to fight for myself and make my own way. It's incredibly difficult. And so as parents, man, as a dad, when I had kids, oh my gosh, the P word at my house, that's a holy word, still is to this day. If I made a promise to my kids, that was, even to my own hurt, man, like whatever it took, if I said it, I was going to, because I wasn't going to cause that kind of damage to my own children. You need to recognize that. You blow smoke to your kids, you just say what you think they want to hear in the moment, you make promises and you don't follow through on them, you are doing damage to your children. It wrecks your relationship with them, and obviously it wrecks our marriages, right? I mean, it just does. Oh my gosh. We've been talking a lot about adultery around here over the last couple of weeks because it's such a fun topic to talk about, just because it's come up a couple of times in the Sermon on the Mount. And I've had to walk through that really painful situation, lots of couples in my 27 years of being a pastor. And one thing I've discovered is that a lot of times, most of the time, the person that was cheated on, they can get past the fact, and not easily, I'm not saying it's easy, but they can usually get past the fact that their spouse had sex with someone. You know, be like, okay, they're weak, they're broken, they had sexual, physical contact with another person. They can usually, it's hard, it's way harder for men because their egos are so fragile, but usually at some point they can deal with that. The obstacle oftentimes, though, that's insurmountable, that they can't hurdle, is the lying. You know what I mean? They're just like, hi, Shane, like they lied and lied and lied and lied. They're just liars. Like they looked at me in the face and lied. They lied for a year. They lied for 2 days. We lived this lie. They lived a lie. How can I ever trust anything that ever rolls out of their mouth again? And usually it's not the sex. Usually it's the lying that causes that relationship to be unable to be reconciled. And that's a legitimate question too, isn't it? How can I ever trust them? How can I ever believe? And that's the problem with lying, beloved. That's why the thing about lying, though, is it's not limited to those big things, right? It's not limited to adultery. It's not limited to you hiding your porn addiction or your alcohol addiction or your drug addiction. But obviously, if you are an addict in some area of your life, you need to come clean on that and confess it and start working on it. Because if you're an addict, by definition, you are a liar, because every addiction is hidden by lies. But it's not limited, and that's spoken from a former addict. So I'm not trying to be mean to anyone. That's just a fact. But lying isn't limited to those things, right? Lying has many faces. Deception and dishonesty has many faces, big and little, but all of those faces are ugly and all of those faces are destructive. And Jesus is asking us to put all of those things to the side and be people of truth. And again, this one's just so incredibly easy for all of us to give into and to justify it. It just is and one of the main reasons that lying is so common and so easy for all of us to fall prey to it is because the biggest Achilles heel that every one of us have is pride. Every human, it's what got Satan kicked out of heaven. It's and if you think pride isn't a problem for you, that's the biggest our sign to you that pride is probably your biggest problem. Because that's what lying is rooted in to a great degree. I want to look better than I am. I don't want to know the truth about who I am. It's self-preservation, self-protection, and it's just incredibly easy for all of us to. In fact, lying has become just so normative. Maybe it always has been. I just think more about it now as I get older. But even the way that so often we talk when we want someone to really believe us, we add qualifiers a lot nowadays, don't we? I find myself doing it all the time. I want to smack myself in the head every time I do it. But we do it. You really want someone to believe you, and what do we say? No, I'm just really being sincere. No, man. No, Andrew, I'm just being totally honest. You know what I mean? We say stuff like that once to lead the other person to believe. So normally you're not, but now you are. You know what I mean? I know what we mean. What I mean, we're just really serious. But everyone lies, and there's spins everywhere, and exaggeration, and half truths, and so we even as believers oftentimes are qualifying our statements like that, and sometimes even worse. No, I swear it, man, or I swear to God. And what we're going to learn from Jesus at this point in the Sermon on the Mount is that these kinds of qualifiers ought not be a part of our vocabulary, because everything we say should be totally honest. So these kinds of qualifiers or oaths, if you will, ought not be something that ever roll out of our mouths. And he says it this way in Matthew 5:33-37. Again, you've heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it's God's throne, or by earth, for it's his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it's the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head. You can't make even one hair white or black. Apparently back in those days, they didn't have that hair dye, ladies. No? Because I believe some of you today can make your hair black, can't you? Anyway. All you need to say is yes or no. You let your yes be yes, you let your no be no. You add anything to that, it's from the devil. It's from the devil. That's pretty intense right there. And so, just so you know, verse 33, there, you can see it. Just leave it up there if you would. Yeah, thank you. He's not addressing one specific Old Testament command. Jesus isn't. What he's doing is he's referencing the way. It's an important part. The way in which the Pharisees had summarized the 4, 5, or 6 Old Testament passages about oaths. I gave you 4, if you want to look them up for yourself later. Those are 4 of the big ones. I think there's a 5th you could add to that. And the Reader's Digest version of the way Moses wrote it and the intent of God in it is basically, first of all, it wasn't wrong to swear an oath in the Old Testament. It's actually part of their culture. And it was reserved. It was meant to be reserved, though, for legal transactions, for getting married or I'm going to buy some donkeys from you, those kinds of things. It wasn't ever really meant to be used for personal relationships where I'm trying to get you to believe something that I'm saying, so I swear an oath. It wasn't the purpose of it at all. And the gist of what you see there is if you did this, if you took an oath, what you were doing, you swear an oath in God's name back then in the ancient Near Eastern world. What you were saying, basically, here's what I'd be doing. I'd be saying, hey, man, I'm inviting God to be a witness between us in this transaction that we're making. And so if I don't hold up my end of the deal, if I don't give you the 14 donkeys I said I'd give you for the 7 lambs you're giving me, then I'm inviting God as a witness to bring his judgment and his punishment into my life for not keeping my end of the deal. And if you study the rest of the Old Testament, you will discover that God did indeed bring his judgment and his punishment into the lives of the people who took an oath in his name and didn't follow through. So the point is, it's holy and it's a really, really big deal. So if you do it, you better follow through on it. Now the Pharisees had twisted it yet again. So Jesus said, you heard it said, but I say. They twisted it for the purpose, I'm not joking either, it sounds crazy, but they did. They had twisted it for the purpose of being able to lie. To be able to break certain oaths and feel as though they weren't breaking the law of Moses. They were master manipulators. And so they wanted to be able to be dishonest, to manipulate people, to get things from people, or to have people think well of them, but not be technically lying, so they weren't breaking the law of Moses. And so what they did is they twisted the third commandment, Exodus 20, verse 7, that says, you should not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Now, when we think of that, we tend to think of like what? Like, don't say, oh my God, no OMG. And that's probably a good thing not to say, but it's not really the heart of or the purpose of the third commandment. It's a different sermon for a different day. But here's what they were doing. They would say, they made it about the way you made the promise, not the promise itself. So they would say, like, listen, if you make a promise in God's name, well, you got to keep that one for sure, because if you don't, you're taking his name in vain. And that's not untrue. Like, that's actually true. But they would limit it to that. So what I mean is, if they wanted to make a promise that they kind of felt in their heart they're probably not going to keep, they don't know if they mean it, or they just know for sure they're not. They just want to win someone's approval, get someone to like them, have someone think well of them, just get their wife off their back, have their kids believe something in the moment, whatever. Those things we say just because we want the situation to go away, but they didn't really mean it. They just wouldn't make those promises in God's name. They'd swear by heaven, they'd swear by earth, they'd swear by Jerusalem, they'd swear by the temple, they'd swear by their own head, and then if they didn't follow through on it, they'd be like, oh, you misunderstood. I didn't really promise. I didn't make that promise in God's name. I just swore by Jerusalem. It's not a big deal. Like, you misunderstood what I said. And they would manipulate it. In other words, they devised an elaborate scheme that allowed them to lie, yet feel like they were still being obedient to the law of Moses. And you study Matthew 23 for yourself later. Jesus hated it. He dismantled it line upon line. You can read it for yourself later. He goes deep into it. Here, though, based on the Sermon on the Mount, he's not going that deep into it. What he's saying, to paraphrase what he's saying here, is you guys are ridiculous. That's what he's saying. He's saying you can't do that. What he's literally saying, if you put 33 through 37 back on the screen, Matthew 5, 33 to 37, he's just saying you can't do that. A promise is a promise. And any promise you make in any sphere is a promise you make in God's name, because he owns everything. You can't make a promise that doesn't include God, because everything is his. If you swear by heaven, it's where he dwells. If you swear by the earth, it's where he has his footstool. If you swear by Jerusalem, it's his city. If you swear by your own head, that's his head, because he made it. In other words, what Jesus is saying is a lie is a lie is a lie is a lie is a lie. No matter how you word it, twist it, or bend it or manipulate it, it is a lie. And as his followers, he wants us to not do any of that. He wants us to avoid all deception and all dishonesty. He wants us to be honest, to be people of our word. If we let it come out of our mouth, we mean it. And we do it if we say we're going to do it. And if we're not sure we're going to do it, we don't say it. But if we do say it, we follow through on it. That's what he's driving at. Now, in verse 34, is just to alleviate a little confusion. When he says we shouldn't swear an oath at all, he's not meaning legal contracts. Right? He doesn't mean you can't take out a loan to buy a car. Doesn't mean you can't take a loan and sign on the line for a house. Doesn't mean you can't put your hand on a Bible in court and swear to tell the whole truth. Doesn't mean you can't say wedding vows. Doesn't mean any of those things. It's not about legal oaths. In fact, the purpose of oaths in the Old Testament, it was meant to be for those situations, for legal situations. Right here, Jesus is talking about our personal relationships, because the Pharisees, again, had taken this concept out of the legal context that Moses put it in, and they were using it in personal relationships for their own selfish gains, to manipulate people to believe them about certain promises they never intended on keeping. Jesus is saying, you don't do that. If you're my disciple, you let your yes be yes and your no be no. And when he says in verse 37, if you add anything to that, that comes from the devil, what he means, we need to understand this. He's talking about the worst form of lying. He's saying it's from the devil himself. And it's when you use those oaths. Like what I mean is, to make it, just put in our vernacular, like when you go out of your way, bend over backwards, you give all the qualifiers. No, dude, I'm just being honest. You know, sweetie, I would never lie to you about something like this. I'm just being sincere. Like you do everything you can to manipulate them in every way with all of the qualifiers because you want them to believe you for some selfish reason. You need them to believe you, and so you're going out of your way to convince them that what you're saying is true, and you'd never lie about something like this, and you know in your heart that it's not true, but you're just wanting them or needing them to believe you. That's what he's talking about, and it is the worst form of lying. He says it is from the devil. It is from the evil one. And beloved, ultimately, one of the main reasons that we are called to be honest and be people of truth is because Jesus himself is the truth. Amen? And Satan is the liar and the father of lies. John 14 and John 8, like just meditate on those two verses. We probably don't need to go any farther with this conversation, do we? Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So we're people of truth. We're honest. We don't dabble in darkness and deception of any kind, not half-truths, not exaggerations, none of that stuff. We don't do that stuff. Because Satan, he's the liar, and he's the father of lies. When he lies, he's speaking his native tongue. That's all he can do is lie. He's the father of lies. That means whenever I lie in any way, especially when I go out of my way to convince you of something I know to be untrue, I am in that moment acting like a child of the devil. I am dabbling in darkness. Deception is demonic, which is one of the reasons it wrecks our relationship with God. David talks about it. I don't have time. I wish I did. I think it's Psalm 14 and Psalm 24, Psalm 15 and Psalm 24. David says it more than once. Who can stand in the presence of God? He who speaks truth, he who doesn't swear deceitfully, he who makes an oath and fulfills it even to his own hurt. Like he shouldn't have made the oath, but he did, and so he's going to follow. That's the person that can stand in the presence of God and experience his presence. David said, if I'm being deceptive with people, there's no way I can have an intimate, vibrant, passionate relationship with God and experience his presence because it is darkness, and David is clear about it. Okay, so I think that's about simple enough, right? We all get this. So simple question. I don't need to say that much about lying, right? We all know what it means to lie, yeah? I already feel like Captain Obvious. You know what I mean? We teach our kids not to lie. We know what it is to lie. We're not supposed to do it, right? So simple question. Am I a liar or a person of my word? You know what I mean? Am I a person of my word? Do I believe that about myself? Do I believe that everything I say, I mean what I say what I mean? And if I swear it, I'm going to do it no matter what. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. But I do believe that about me. More importantly, is that what other people think about me? If they say it, they're going to do it. Done deal. Everything they say, if they don't say anything they don't mean. Is that what people think about me? Is that what I think about myself? If not, you don't need to beat yourself up and feel guilty, but you do need to change and become that kind of person. The question is how? And the answer is real simple. If you make a promise, you keep it. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. If you say you're not going to do it, you don't do it. Whether it's big or it's little, whether or not you can get away with it, and the person you made the promise to knows that you did or you didn't, that has nothing to do with it. You do it simply because you said you would. You don't do it simply because you said you wouldn't. And if you blow it, you apologize. You know what I mean? We're weak, we're broken, we're going to blow it. You know what I mean? It happens, but you got to own it. That's what it means to be a person of integrity. You may just even forget, right? I forget. I am so ADHD. Shoot, sometimes I forget what I'm talking about up here. You know what I mean? Super sincere. There's so many times my wife would be like, Shane, you said you were good. And I'm like, oh, I did say that. I'm so sorry. I'll do it right now. I forgot, and I forget things all the time, so I'll do it right now. I'm not like, woman, you misunderstood me. That's what he's, I did say that, please forgive me. I'll do it right now, or I'll do it by 4 o'clock tomorrow. And then hopefully I don't forget again. But you know what I mean? So you just own it. Or something comes up and you can't fulfill the commitment, but you meant it. You own that. You said, please forgive me. I told you I was going to be at your house at 4. I didn't get there till 6. It's totally my fault. Please forgive me. We own those things, beloved. That's what it means to be a person of integrity. And as simple as it is and as obvious as it is, this is no side issue. Don't hear this that way. Oh, yeah, we should probably try not to be exaggerators and liars and manipulate people to believe us and blah, 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 blah. This is no side issue. This is in the Sermon on the Mount. This is one of the 6 areas of sin that Jesus asked us to avoid, beloved. This is significant. And this one thing, if you are not a person of integrity, if you are not a person of your word, this one thing, if you start to be that, can bring instant change for good in every area of your life immediately. I mean immediately. Obviously, it's going to have a massive impact on the way your kids look at you and your relationship with them. Obviously, it's going to have a massive impact on your spouse and your marriage, your friends and your relationships. But even like in your career, you know what I mean? Like if you're a business owner and you always underpromise and overdeliver, you're going to be successful in business. If you're known as at work, whatever company you work for, whatever you do, if you're known by your company, your boss, and all of your coworkers as a person of their word, what I mean is you say you're going to do it and they just count it as being done, and they don't have to have a second meeting, a third meeting, a fourth meeting to find out why you didn't do the thing you said you were going to do. They don't have to follow up and chase you around and say, hey, you said you were going to, but you didn't. If they just know it's done and it is, you will be successful in time. If, however, you are that company that is constantly saying you're going to do things, you don't follow through on them, or if you're that worker that when you say you're going to do something, everyone's kind of like, well, say, you know what I mean? Like they just go, yeah, well, there they go again, blowing more smoke. So we all think they're awesome and committed, and we'll see if they actually do follow through this time, because usually they're just blowing smoke and they don't do the things they said they were going to do. Like if that's you, I don't care what your job is, you will not be successful. So the point is real simple, right? Let your yes be yes, and real quick, we got to address it real quick, let your no be no. He says that too. This doesn't just go for yes, this goes for no. And what I've learned over the years is that's harder for some of us than the yes be yes. You know what I mean? Sometimes the no be no. Sometimes that's even harder for us. You know what I mean? If you're super sympathetic and compassionate and empathetic, you never want to say no to anyone, or you're just a bound to people pleasing, you're just a people pleaser, and it's just sometimes it's just hard for people to say no. And so if it is hard for you to say no to people, so you say yes, when you know you probably won't do the thing that you said yes to, but you just didn't want to say no in the moment because you didn't want to hurt their feelings or disappoint them. Just so you know, if you're saying yes when you should have said no, but you don't say no just because you didn't want to hurt their feelings, but you're pretty sure you're probably never going to do that thing, but you just didn't want to have that awkward moment, that is a lie. That is dishonest, and you need to learn to say no. Everybody say this with me. No. Say it again. No. It's a beautiful word. It is. It's a good word. And you let your no be no. You just let your no be no. Like seriously, if someone asks you to do something and you know it shouldn't be on your plate and it's going to just bury you, you just say sorry no. That's all you say. Some of you are panicked right now. Like, I can't do that. You don't add qualifiers. You don't give them the 10 reasons you'd really like to do that thing, but you just can't, when half of them are probably not true anyway. You just say sorry no. And it is freeing and beautiful. And some of you need to learn this. It's something I had to learn. I did. I was terrible at no for lots of broken reasons, but my inability to say no landed me in the hospital when I was 33 years old. I planted a church in Madison, grew to 1,400 people in 6-7 years, and I was preaching every weekend because everyone always wanted me to preach. I didn't want to disappoint anyone, so I preached every weekend, and I preached even longer then, and with more energy, and I didn't want to disappoint them, so I did all the preaching, and then I led a Bible study that turned into 300 people every Tuesday night, and I did it every week so I didn't want to disappoint them, and then I led the prayer meeting every Thursday night because I didn't want to disappoint them, and then I did weddings literally almost every weekend because I was the old man at the church, and they were all young, they're all getting married, and they all wanted me to do their wedding, and I didn't want to disappoint them, and I counseled people all week long because everybody needed me, and I didn't want to disappoint them, so I said yes, and I ended up beyond burnout in the hospital with doctors looking me in the face saying, if you don't change the way you live, you'll be dead by the time you're 40. I had to learn the word no. And I just want to tell you, I have. And it's a beautiful word. It is. And sincerely, beloved, if you're that person, super empathetic, compassionate, just can't say no, all brokenness, man, please don't disappoint people, all that stuff, you know who you are and you know what I'm talking about. Here's what helped me. Here's what helped me to learn to say no. Jesus helped me. I started to study his life. You know what I discovered? He said no more than he said yes. He said no all the time. Jesus was God, but he was also a man. And his public ministry he did out of his humanity as a man filled with the Holy Spirit. And he taught us a very healthy way to live. Jesus did not meet every need. In fact, he didn't meet more needs than he met. He was God. He could have met everybody's need all the time, but he didn't. He went to the pool of Bethesda. He healed one person out of 1,000. He said no to 999 and yes to one. In fact, in John 5:19, the verse that really helped me is Jesus said, I myself only do what I see the Father doing. I just adopted that and made it my mantra. God, if you want me to do it, I'm going to do it. But I'm not going to do it just because people want me to do it. I'm not going to do it just so I don't disappoint people and hurt their feelings. I'm not going to let that kind of brokenness drive me to an early grave. I am going to learn to say no. And some of you need to learn to say no. And when you say no, you simply let your no be no. And that may disappoint people at times, but that's okay because that's between them and Jesus. There's only one Jesus and I'm not him and neither are you. Amen? Amen. Makes me happy. Okay. It's freeing. It's freeing. It is. Some of you got to learn it. Say no. Let your no be no. Let your yes be yes. Okay, so the fifth area of sin that we need to avoid. So I'm going to say about that, like that's good enough, right? We get what Jesus means there. We all know what it means to be honest, yes? We're all going to be honest, yes? Okay. Okay. Say what we mean what we say. That's what we're going to aim for. That's what we're going to aim for. Okay, fifth area of sin that we're going to avoid is seeking revenge, settling the score, getting even. You know what I mean? Someone hurts you, you're going to hurt them back. And Jesus talked about this already in different ways. He goes a little deeper here, so we're going to do a little deeper dive. But he says it this way in verses 38 through 42. You heard that it was said, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek also. Let them hit you again. Some dudes in the room right now are like, what? I'm going to hook them. Okay. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, that's not a great translation. I'm not trying to be mean to the NIV. It's just not a good translation. Usually the NIV is pretty good. That's not good. It's outer garment. So if they want to sue you and take your outer garment, that's how it should be translated. Hand over your coat. Again, sorry, just bad translation. Inner garments. Think of that, inner garments. So they want to take your outer garment, give it to them, and then just offer them your inner garment too. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go 2. Give it to the one who asks, and don't turn away for the one who wants to borrow from you. Arguably, these are some of the most difficult and debated words Jesus ever uttered. From which, in my opinion, many illogical, wrong, and potentially even dangerous doctrines and conclusions have been drawn by large segments of the body of Christ since the time he said those words and even still today. What I mean is things like this, conclusions like this are drawn. That we as Christians should never engage in violence for any reason whatsoever in our individual lives or even as a nation. Things like there's never a just cause for war in any situation, so therefore we shouldn't have military at all. And if we do have military, if you're a Christian, you shouldn't be in it because you're not allowed to use violence ever for any reason. So we shouldn't have a police force, and if we do, you shouldn't be one. In fact, we shouldn't even have a court system to resist evil people in any way, because Jesus said we should never resist an evil person. So in other words, this is where pacifism came from. The doctrine of nonviolence, which has become super hip and trendy with the young kind of 30 and under hipster pastors, with the skinny jeans. It's really hip. It is. It's super trendy and hot. It plays good with the liberal culture right now. It's always been around, but it's hotter and hipper right now than it's ever been. And so really, I'd like to say, if this isn't a Christian ethics class, if it was, we could have a ton of fun with this. But I got to stay pretty focused because this is Christian ethics, but that's not the point here. Here's what I'd say to you. The question you want to ask yourself as a student of God's Word, if you understand Genesis to Revelation in its totality, like you have a grid for the whole deal, what you want to do then is you want to look at Jesus' words here, and you want to ask yourself one of the most important questions Bible interpreters must ask themselves. Really? That's the question. Really? Like, really? That's what I'm supposed to get from this? Like, really? I've read Genesis and Revelation many, many times, and understanding the totality of Scripture, what I'm supposed to draw from the words of God right here is that we should have done nothing to stop Hitler. We should just let him just murder everybody. Well, I'm not supposed to resist the evil man. Is that really what we're supposed to draw from this? Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the great German theologian and scholar, was wrong for wanting to assassinate Hitler. Is that what we're supposed to draw from? So we should let wicked, evil people do whatever wicked, evil atrocity to whoever they want, whenever they want, and we should stand by and do absolutely nothing to resist them. Is that what we are supposed to take from these? And I'll tell you what, if it is what we're supposed to take from those words, the Apostle Paul misunderstood Jesus completely, didn't he? Because in Romans 13, he made it very clear that God has given the government a sword to bring judgment and punishment upon wrongs done in an evil society for the purpose of bringing order out of chaos in a wicked world. So Paul clearly misunderstood, but Paul didn't misunderstand Jesus, because that's not what Jesus meant. And listen, if you're a pacifist, you're one of the nonviolent people, that's great. And I'm not trying to be mean to you. I just want you to know to draw those conclusions from these verses is terrible. It's just terrible Bible exegesis. It just is. First of all, Jesus isn't talking about war to begin with, right? He's not talking about governments. Who's he talking to? Who's he talking to? I started the sermon by saying, who's he talking to? Us, his disciples. This isn't about war and governments. This is about me. This is about me and you, man. This is about me and you. This Christmas is about me and you. It's about our relationship as individual disciples, how we treat each other, and how we as individual disciples respond to insult, to oppression, and to mistreatment in general. He's not actually even talking about physical violence here. He's not. He's not saying those things. He starts, and I'll prove all of that in the next few minutes. I'll try to. He starts, though, in verse 38 with what is called the lex tenionis, and it is the Old Testament law of just retribution. You see this 3 times in the Old Testament. 2 times you see it listed as a command because it was a command. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The lex tenionis, the law of just retribution. It's a command. It's how God wanted the nation of Israel to live. And people read that, and they hear that, and like, there you go again, that mean, venge-filled, bloodthirsty Old Testament God, Even Christians think that sometimes. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like he had some, he had a midlife crisis between the Old and New Testament, or he came to some revelatory idea between the 2 testaments. Maybe I should start being nicer to people, right? That's crazy. Same God. We see the fullness of God revealed in the person of Jesus Christ, but that's always who God has been. He's always been the same. He never changes. He is immutable. He cannot change, beloved. He's always been good. He's always been kind. He's always been compassionate. He's always been merciful. He's always been empathetic. He's always been nothing but love, because God is love. It's his nature. He's always been love, both testaments. He didn't change. He has always also been completely just. And that's what this law is. This law, believe it or not, it's mercy. That's a law of mercy. The ancient Near Eastern world that Moses was writing these laws in, it was brutal, man. It was cruel. And so often, back in those days, if I took your donkey and I brought it back with a broken leg, you come over to your house with your 4 sons and kill 14 of my sheep and gouge my eyeballs out. That was how that world was, even in Israel. So God put this law in place for mercy, to be no, to take vengeance out of the hands of individual people and put it in the hands of the courts and the elders of the day, and to limit your retribution so that the punishment would always only fit the crime, and so that you could not go beyond it. This was mercy. No other nation in the ancient Near Eastern world had anything this beautiful. God always did that. He met people where they were, and he accommodated them where they were, and it was a brutal world, and this was his best way of saying, no, you as my people, you're not supposed to be like that. You're supposed to be different. And then now he's here in the Sermon on the Mount, in the flesh, on the earth, and he's saying it's actually even more intense than that. It's even more beautiful than that. There's a whole new way. That's how it's been, because the ancient Near Eastern world was brutal, but we're going to do it different now. Now I'm here. I'm going to show you the way of the kingdom, the way we're going to do it from this point forward. And it's going to be very, very different. As my disciples, from this point on, this is how you will respond to someone when they hurt you. And it's so different, and the way he says it is so confusing that it has led to lots of confusion. So I'm just going to see if I can clear it up for us a little bit. The big one is obviously verse 39. Which is, do not resist an evil person. If they strike you on the right cheek, let them hit you on the left one too. So understand what he's not saying here is he's not saying just let evil people do evil things and evil atrocities and do nothing to stop them. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying if someone's beating your wife, you let them. You just stand back and go, well, I'm not supposed to resist them. He's not saying you should let someone beat you or physically abuse you or stay in a physically violent relationship. He's not saying that. He's not actually talking about violence at all. And we need to understand this from a first century, from their perspective. How would this audience have understood what Jesus was saying? Now, the reason I think it gets a little confusing, and I give a little grace for people that draw conclusions that we're supposed to always only be nonviolent, is because when he says do not resist an evil person, the word resist is a military term. I've used it many times in my spiritual warfare teachings. It's a military term that means to stand against with physical violence. So he said, don't stand against the evil person with physical violence. So there is a sense in which this is a call to nonviolence, right? That's clear. But, it is a very specific situation that he's addressing. And it's not physical violence. It's not. That's not how they would have understood it. I just try to make this simple as I can. Back in the first century world, it was a right-handed world, even more so than today. Like right cheek meant something, right eye meant something, right hand meant something. Point is, though, it was a right-handed world. Like even if you're left-handed, sorry, it just is what it is. My daughter's left-handed, and I just want you to know I feel your pain because I'm colorblind, and nobody cares about me either. You know what I mean? Like, where's my group to fight for my rights? You know what I mean? I can't see any colors, but red and green, not even close. So even stoplights, talk about not caring about someone. Even stoplights are red and green. Like I just roll through those going, hope it's green. I have no idea. Cops pulled me over. You ran a red light. Did not. Maybe I'll start a group to fight for my rights. I'm oppressed. Nobody cares about me, right? So, but the point is, focus, man, focus. So I'm right-handed. The world was, and if they weren't, they tried to be back then. So a right-handed person, if I want to strike you on the right cheek as a right-handed person, how do I do that? There's only one way, right? Yeah. It happened it was an insult. That's how it was understood in the first century world. It wasn't about physical violence. They would have never received it that way. If I want to hurt you, I'm going to ball up my hand, I'm going to make a fist, and I'm going to hook you. And where's it going to land? Where's it going to land? Left side, right? That's to harm you physically. The point I'm making is that first, they knew exactly what Jesus meant. And it happened to them all the time. They're peasants. He's talking to peasants. And the Roman soldiers and Jewish elite did it to him all the time, just to let them know, you're not equal to me. Maybe it stung a little bit, but that wasn't the point of it at all. It wasn't about physical violence. It was to let you know that you're not equal to me, you're beneath me, I'm above you, we're not equals. It was meant to humiliate. It was an insult. That's very clearly how they would have understood. That's how we need to understand it. It's about insults, it's about offense. It's not about someone doing physical violence to me or my family. You do physical violence to my family, coming for you, right? There's two ways to understand and apply how Jesus is telling us to respond. Now, one of them is for all of us as disciples. The other way to understand this is for people who are oppressed and in systems of injustice and oppression. And I want to talk about both, so just hang with me. I'm going to try to give both interpretations and applications for two reasons. One is because the first century world that is being written to, they would have understood it from the place of oppression, because they were truly oppressed. These peasants, they were truly oppressed. So that's probably the main way they would have understood what he was saying. But I'm going to give a general application to all of us, because most of us, bless you, sister, she just blew her brains out right there. Because most of us aren't oppressed like that. We're just not. So I'm going to give you a general application. However, there are many people and people groups in our country today who do feel like they're oppressed, right? They feel like America is very oppressive, very unjust, and they believe that they are truly oppressed. Many different peoples and groups in our country today feel that way. First of all, I'm not saying I agree with them. Second of all, I'm not saying I don't. Third of all, it doesn't matter if I agree with them or not. It doesn't matter if you agree with them or not. Amen? Because if they feel as though they're oppressed, then it's real to them. And so if you are that Christian, you're a Christian and you feel that way, then Jesus is giving you a very clear way to respond as one of his disciples to that unjust system of oppression that you find yourself in. So we'll start with that group of people and that interpretation. Because what Jesus is doing, if you're oppressed, truly oppressed, he's giving you a third way. It's called the third way. An alternative way to deal with the oppression that you're feeling. And I didn't make that up. This is what it's called. It's called the third way. It's his way. He's giving you his way. A way between doing nothing and just letting it happen to you and doing violence, because you're not supposed to be violent against the evil person, right? So he's giving you, let me make it as simple as I can. He's giving you a way between doing nothing and burning cities down. It's his way of dealing with oppression. So in this first example, it's 4 examples. The first example, if a Roman soldier slapped a Jewish peasant and the Jewish peasant turned the other cheek, what that peasant was saying to that Roman soldier, or the elite person who hit them or whatever, they're saying, I don't receive that. I don't receive your assessment. That's not true. I don't receive that. I'm not less than you. That's what they were saying. We're equal. And because I know who I am. I know how God feels about me. I know where my value really lies. And it's not in your view. In fact, this system is broken and wrong, and you're all deceived. So I refuse to receive your assessment that you're better than me. It means so little to me. Go ahead, hit me again. Doesn't even matter. That's how little it means to me. It doesn't mean anything to me. The object of this was the oppressor, the one doing the slapping, would be so shocked by this response that it might actually soften their heart and cause them to believe maybe this system really is broken and maybe this system really is wrong, so that in time hearts would be changed and these systems of oppression would be removed. But the practical application for the majority of us in this room as disciples of Jesus who are not truly oppressed is that if someone insults us or speaks negative of us, we don't respond in kind. We turn the other cheek. We turn away. We forgive and we give it to God, right? That's what it means. It's pretty practical, right? I don't fire back. You say something bad about me, I'll say something bad about you. It's really simple. I just give it to God, and I just turn away from it. And so that's what I do. And you go, and people go, well, that's crazy. So they just get away with it. So you just get it. And understand who he's talking about, the evil person. He's talking about how we respond to the evil person. The evil person. Who's the evil person? It's the mean person. Like, they mean to hurt me. They mean to hurt you. They're saying it to wound you. They're saying it to wreck your ministry. They're saying it to wreck your reputation. They don't like you, man. It's not a misunderstanding. Like, they want to hurt you. They're an evil person. And Jesus says, if the evil person insults me, I should just turn the other cheek. For all the same reasons. Because it doesn't matter what you think. I know who I am and I know where my value lies, and your assessment of me means so little. Go ahead, say something else. I don't care. I'm not going to lose 3 minutes of peace over it in my life and let my emotions be negatively impacted by it, because I know who I am and I know where my value lies. Like, that's the point that he's making. Then people will say, they just get away with it, they just get away with it, they just get away with it. No, they don't. It's a third way. Even in the general application, it's a third way. It's a way for you. Turning the other cheek is not doing nothing. Oh, beloved, I tell you the truth. Turning the other cheek is powerful, because what you're doing is now you're giving God a chance to move in their life. That's powerful, amen? And so too often we take matters into our own hand. Paul said it in Romans 12:19. It's one of my favorite verses. And as a pastor, I get lots of chances to do this. Like this week, I had this lady, she said oh my gosh, it was so evil. People are like, Shane, you got to read what she said. I was like, oh, I'm horrible, right? Like, so evil. I get lots of chances for this one. In Romans 12:19, Paul said it. He said, don't take revenge. It's clear, no vengeance. Leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, it's mine to avenge. So turning the other cheek is doing just that. It's leaving room for God's wrath. Too often we don't, though, do we? I think so often, man, like someone hurt me, did something to me, and God sees me, but I'm gonna tell them. I'm gonna show them. I start walking that way, and you know God's up in heaven. Don't, Shane, don't. Here he goes again. Okay, it's yours now, Shane. Now you've left no room for my wrath. Now you deal with it, and we'll see how good that turns out, because man's anger never brings about the righteousness of God. James says that. But God's wrath, if you can leave room for it, it's beautiful. It's redemptive. It's restorative. We have no idea what he might do in that person's heart, or the reconciliation that may come, or the conviction he may bring, but it will always be redemptive, and it will always be restorative, and it's beautiful. The point I'm trying to make is turning the other cheek is not doing nothing. It's doing something powerful, because it's leaving room for God's wrath. It is his to avenge. The question that I have to wrestle with sometimes, oftentimes because of the way I grew up, is, can I trust him? Can I trust him? I was a fighter, man. I had to fight for everything growing up. I was a scrapper. Just how I grew up. So that's always that question for me. Like, someone just destroys me like that, can I just trust him? That's ultimately what this comes down to. But if we can trust him and turn the other cheek, we're giving God a chance to move in power in someone's life. Okay, second example. Just for the record, that one alone would change a lot of marriages. Now, second example, though, verse 40. This is a bit of a legal example about the coat and the shirt. Now, is it specifically meant to be a legal example or not? I don't know for sure, but it's the example he used. And again, the application to oppressed people needs to be understood, because I want you to understand how oppressed these people were, that he's talking to, that he's saying these words to. These Jewish peasants, like, what happened is they were minding their own business, and then one day this wicked foreign army came in, called Rome, and raped and pillaged and murdered everyone. They raped the women, they murdered the men, and they took all the land for themselves, just because they could. Reminds me of one of the greatest rock songs ever written. It's called Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden. You can file that away for later. That's what happened, though. And it's just so wicked. And even more wicked than that, though, because now all this land was theirs, and it was their grandparents, this would be their kids. This wicked army, just because they're bigger and stronger, and just because they wanted, just took it all from them, raped their wives, murdered people, all that stuff. Horrible. It was even more horrible, though, because their own brothers got in bed with this wicked army. The Jewish elite, the politicians, the Sanhedrin, the court, the Pharisees, the scribes, the Sadducees, the teachers of the law. They got in bed with this wicked army, right? And this wicked army said, hey, all that land we just took from your brothers, we'll give it all to you. You make you super rich. You just keep them in line for us, and you'll win. That's exactly what happened. So these peasants now have to rent their own land that 4 weeks ago they owned from some Jewish elite person or some Pharisee. And if that's real oppression, yeah? And if they couldn't pay the rent, then the house that they built with their own hands, that they lived in with their family, well, that landowner would take that from them too. Go to court, take the house. And then they still couldn't pay, then the landowner would take them to court and take all the farm animals, and right? And if they still couldn't pay, which now they probably couldn't because they just took all their means of doing it, they take their wife and children and sell them into slavery to get all the money out of them they could. It was legal. It happened all the time. Again, that's real oppression. I know what your situation is here in America, but I don't think it's that. That is real oppression. Now, the one thing they weren't supposed to do, it wasn't a law, it was more like a just cultural norm. It was too far. Like, this is where it was too far, is they were not supposed to take them to court and sue them for their outer garment. Like, that's where they drew the line. That's inhumane, because they should have at least something warm to sleep in because I took their house, you know what I mean? The thing is, even though they weren't supposed to do that, it wasn't a law, so they were doing it anyway. The Jewish elite were taking these peasants to court, and they were suing them for their outer garment too, taking everything from them. And Jesus said, if they do that, let them have it. Let them have it. And as soon as you let them have it, take off your inner garment and give them that too. That's what he's saying. Beloved, like, that's your undies. That's your inner garment. It's a one-piece underwear, but it's underwear. Jesus is saying, just get naked. It says in court. The picture Jesus painted is now you're standing, this is a court, hundreds of people there in the court. You gave them the outer garment, and you didn't offer it, you just gave it. You didn't say, hey, you want this too? Nope, you just take it off and give it right. You give them more than they're asking for. So you're standing there naked. And the point of this is to shame them. This is what Jesus is saying. Just shame them. Let it be exposed. Take it the whole way. Let everyone in that courtroom realize how unjust this system is. Because nakedness in that culture was shameful. But not to the person who was naked, but to the person who saw the nakedness. Remember Noah when he got hammered, drunk, and passed out, which he shouldn't have, but he did. And his son Ham saw him naked, and Ham was the one that was shamed. That was the culture then. They'll be shamed when they see your nakedness. And that's the point he's making. Just make it obvious so that everyone in that courtroom will go, oh my gosh, this is horrible what we're doing to these people. This is awful. Like, this needs to change. It's a third way to deal with true oppression. But for the majority of us who will never experience that kind of oppression, Jesus appears to be saying if an evil person wants to take something from me that they have no right to, that I should let them take it. Someone in business, at work, a neighbor, their motives are selfish, but in reality they have no claim to it, but they're making a huge stink over it. Jesus says, just let them have it. You know, they don't take the credit for the project that you did. Let them have it. It doesn't matter. Here's the thing, though. The size matters, right? The size does matter. Like, Jesus isn't saying, let someone take your business. Any evil person that wants to ever take your business and all your money, your house, and your cars, every time someone does that, you just let them have it. That's not what he's saying, so that you can't provide for your family and that you're on the street. He says it's a shirt and a coat is $50. It ain't that big a deal. Let them have it. That's what he's talking about. Those little things that we freak out about, that's ours. Just let them have it. It's not that big a deal. See, part of what Jesus is doing is trying to free me from the tyranny of holding so tightly to every little thing. And he's just saying, let them have it. There's so much more I can say about that, but I can't. Verse 41, third example. Again, two applications, the oppressed and the rest of us. Now, in this example, go the extra mile. They would have understood exactly what this meant. As brief as I can be, Roman soldiers who were conscripted back then, so it's not like they were rich. They were getting a good job, though, but they didn't have lots of money usually, so they didn't have a horse. They had tons of military gear they had to carry all the time, though. So there's a law written in that said a Roman soldier could grab any Jewish peasant, so long it was a male, at any time they wanted, and that Jewish peasant had to carry their gear for 1 mile. Like, so it wasn't ultimately that big a deal, but it was super demeaning, and they hated it because it didn't matter what the guy's doing. He's had date night with his wife. He's throwing a ball at his kid. He's working in his field. Just you now come carry my gear. You had no choice. You had to drop everything you were doing. So demeaning, right? So humiliating. But in real life, it's like 20 minutes of your life. Ultimately, not that big a deal. But they hated it, and they hated it for obvious reasons. And Jesus says, well, next time that happens to you, walk 2 miles with them. Those dudes were probably like, why do you want to go the first one? I want to punch him in the face. I don't want to be with them 1 second longer than I got to be. She's like, yeah, I know. Just go a second mile with them. Give them more than he asked. Do it freely. Do it voluntarily, and that's the point. It's a third way. Maybe the lights will come on, is what Jesus is saying. Because now the second mile, they can't make you do that. That's you, man to man, equals. I'm choosing to walk this with you as an equal. And maybe in that next 20 or 30 minutes, maybe you'll have some real conversations as men about your wives and your families. And maybe that reaction of you freely giving them more than he asked will cause his heart to be softened, and he'll understand that you are equals and that this is wrong, so that little by little, these oppressive systems of injustice would be changed without you picking up a sword. The third way. But again, though, like for most of us, so we're not going to experience that kind of oppression. So this is for us about how we respond to small inconveniences, especially if it's caused by an evil person, someone that doesn't like us, they're mean, they don't like us, who happens to be in some position of authority over us, because that's a situation. If these soldiers were authority, they could make these guys do this. So that's the situation this is, right? So it's someone who cares less about our lives, our schedules, what we have going on in our world. There's dropping stuff on our plates that they don't want to do, and they have the authority to do it. Maybe it's our government, a boss, a teacher, a coach, that their motives aren't pure. They just don't want to do it. It's beneath them, so they put it on you, and your plate's already full. They go, you go do this. They don't care about what you have going on, and they drop those things on you. Jesus says, do it. Just do it. Do it with a good attitude, and then do even more than they asked. And again, understand, just a small inconvenience. You know what I mean? It's a second mile. It's it's taking their clothes to the dry cleaner. It's not taking care of their toddler for 4 years. You know what I mean? It's 15 minutes. It's 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's a second mile. It's not that big a deal. So Jesus, just do it. And do it with a good attitude. You know what I mean? And just because either way you're going to have to do it because they have authority over you. So just do it with a good attitude and don't let it wreck your emotions. You know what I mean? Don't let them steal your life from you. All of these examples he's using, all of them produce negative emotions in us, don't they? None of them are very significant. Insult, it's humiliation, it's they want $50 from me, it's they want me to do this task that I don't want to do. None of these are significant things, really. But all of them have the potential to produce some pretty negative emotions in us when it happens to us, right? And that's part of what he's wanting to do here. I'm not alone in this. I didn't make this up. I'm not alone in this opinion. He's wanting us to see those negative emotions, capture those negative emotions, process those negative emotions, call them what they are. Ask ourselves, why does this bother me so bad? And almost always it's because of pride. Why would they ask me to do that? How dare they insult me? Like almost all of it's rooted in pride. And he wants to set us free from those negative emotions, beloved. And it's very true with this one. I mean, my goodness, I know people that are still offended at something someone said about them 2 years ago. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you're just gonna let that rob you? Like 2 years ago, and you're still letting it affect your emotions? You're insane. You're giving someone else that kind of power in your life? That's what Jesus is trying to set us free from here. Or the person that their boss asked them to do this menial task like 6 months ago, and it took them 15 minutes to do it. And 6 months later, they're still griping about it. Jesus is like, let it go. Stop sweating the small stuff and get free from the tyranny of being enslaved to yourself. He is offering us liberty here, beloved. Okay, last example, now I got to stop. Verse 42. This was funny. It's midnight, and that evil person who's been insulting me, taking my stuff, mistreating me and inconveniencing me just because they don't care about my schedule and they have authority to do it. I mean, he's at my door now. It's midnight. He's asking me for $50. And everything in me wants to punch him in the throat and slam the door. And Jesus says, Shane, give him the $50. That's what he says. Don't turn away from him. Don't turn away. He's still talking about the evil man. He's talking about the evil person. He said, give him the money. You're like, you got to be kidding. And again, understand, beloved, this is not unqualified and absolute. None of these things are. I hope and pray I made that point with each one, but especially this one. What I mean is, Jesus here is not ignoring the many other verses in the Bible that tell us to be careful about who we give money to and how we give it to them. He's not telling us to not be good stewards of our money. He's not telling us to give money to every person in every case who ever asks us. That's not what he's saying. He's not asking us to ignore the Proverbs that say we should never co-sign a loan for someone. He's not asking us to avoid 2 Thessalonians 3:10, where the Apostle Paul said if a man doesn't want to work, that man shouldn't eat. So he's not saying give money to lazy people who don't want to work so they can stay lazy. That's not what he's saying. He's obviously not asking us to empty our wallets for every drug addict and alcoholic begging on the street, because that will just cause them more harm and more pain. His point is simple. It's that we as his disciples should be generous to people in need, even if that person in need hasn't been generous to us. Even if they have mistreated us and insulted us and taken advantage of us, even if we don't want to. If they're in genuine need, no matter how evil they've been to us, and they're asking us for help, and we have the time, the capacity, and the resources to help them, as disciples of Jesus, we're called to help them. I'm guessing at this point we would all agree that none of these things are easy. If they are easy for you, you're way godlier than me. None of these things are easy for me. So here's what helps me. When I think about all these things Jesus is asking me to do, what I remember is that he already did them all. As a man. He's not asking me to do anything he didn't already do. He did it on steroids. He's a good leader. He's a good shepherd. He's not asking me to do anything he didn't do. Like, he literally did all of these things, beloved. He's inviting me to be like him in all of these things so that I can become more and more like him as his apprentice. So if you get annoyed, if you're irritated right now, I get it. You're annoyed that he's asked you to not return insult for insult, to not fight back, to let the selfish person take some of your stuff that they have no right to, or to go above and beyond when you're asked to do something that's an inconvenience that you shouldn't have to do, but someone else doesn't want to do it, they're going to make you do it. If you're irritated that he's asked you to be generous with your resources and share them with people in need, even people who have mistreated you and taken advantage of you, just remember that he has done all of it. And remember that he was God. So he didn't have to do any of it. Not only did he not have to do any of it, he could have with a word destroyed all of his enemies. Yet he allowed himself to be repeatedly lied about, his reputation destroyed by the lies of evil men, and never once did he lift his voice to defend himself, let alone insult them back. Remember that evil men literally took everything that belonged to him. And remember that he more than went the extra mile, that he was more than inconvenienced by the needs of evil men. He left heaven, he became a man, and as a man he allowed himself to be beat, whipped, spit on, mocked, and nailed to the cross that he was forced to carry on his flesh opened back. And all of it he did for the purpose of voluntarily sacrificing his very life to make a way for those evil people who were murdering him to become his friends, so that those evil people could be reconciled to God. And as his disciple, he's asking me and us to follow his example, even and especially when it's hard. And if we do that, not only will the reality of his gospel be seen and spread throughout a dark, deceptive world, but our lives will also be filled with far more joy and happiness and peace and beauty in our relationships, and far more freedom from fear and the anxiety that comes from living consumed by defending our reputations and our time and our stuff, because his way of life might be a hard way of life, and his way of life might be very different than the way of this world, but his way of life is the right way of life. Amen? And that, beloved, is what he's inviting us to join him in. Amen. Stand your feet. But I'm just going to pray that real quick, Lord. It's 12:01 and I got to let him go. So Lord, I pray that you would give us grace to, I simply pray that you give us grace in our individual lives, and then together as a spiritual family, to be the wise ones. That we wouldn't be thinking about what the world's doing, or what we just be thinking about us. Your words to us in our individual lives, and just together as a church, as a spiritual family. And that you give us grace to be the wise ones. That we would be those people that say, I'm gonna not just hear your words, Jesus, but I'm going to seek to put them in practice. I'm going to seek to make these a lifestyle. And when we blow it, which we're going to over and over again, we'd ask you for forgiveness, that we'd push delete, that we'd get up and we get right back on the path called the Sermon on the Mount, that we would be that people. And I pray today that what each of us needs to hear from this time would stick in our hearts, and we would do it. We would put it into practice immediately. Lord, I pray that because it's what you're calling us to. So I pray it just because you're worthy of it. And I also pray it because I know, Jesus, I know you. And you want good for us. And this is a life of freedom. This is a life of peace. This is a life of joy and happiness. So I pray that you give us grace to walk this way so that we could be more like you, and so that more of the beauty of you could be seen in the world, but also so that we could experience more of the life that you died on that cross to give us. I pray all these things in your name, and all God's people said, amen. Amen. Bless you, bless you, bless you.